new deals?
Well, look, let's dig into those headlines and speak to financial expert and founder of Macrodisiac. That's David Belle, who's with us here today. David, how are your nerves throughout all of this? The headlines are "Don't panic."
I think, what we have to realise is that short-term market moves aren't necessarily reflective of the economic conditions and things like that. Short-term volatility is normally a function of, more technical components of the market, such as how people are positioned, what time of day the market's trading at. I think if we saw yesterday, the real drop was, early hours of the morning, which is when there's not many trades going on. And it's easier, basically, for a large sell order to slice through.
You're saying there are a lot of factors contributing to this. The government are making it clear now they're not changing course on this. So underline, if we can strip everything away and all those different factors that may come into play, basically, there still isn't any confidence, though, in this government policy, is there?
I agree. I think the issue is that it's a reflection of uncertainty, really, in the short term, not necessarily kind of a longer-term path. Markets love certainty, and so traders are basically dumping their positions because they just don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah, and the pound rallying yesterday when the Bank of England came out and said we will not hesitate to raise interest rates if we need to, and this emergency intervention providing some of that reassurance. But then we hear that they're not meeting the Monetary Policy Committee again until November, and the pound tanked again. So the markets are all over the place yesterday, and the reality for a lot of people this morning is, was this the plan on Friday when the Chancellor made his mini-budget? Did he think this would happen? And if so, what's his plan? And if not, why didn't he think about that? Because all the warnings were there. Rishi Sunak was trending on Twitter yesterday saying he predicted all of this happening.
Yeah, no, I do agree. I think at the moment it's a battle between the Treasury and the Bank of England. The Bank of England's trying to dampen inflation, and what the Treasury's done is basically kind of gone, well, OK, it doesn't matter, we're going to go full steam ahead with our expansionary fiscal policy, which is actually inflationary. So it's a fight between the Bank of England and interest rates and, spending. I think what we have to bear in mind as well is that the market is forward-looking. So the market yesterday priced in 200 basis points, which is basically 2% increase in interest rates by November. So that's not good either. And that provides, even more uncertainty going forward.
Well, when it comes to mortgages, when it comes to house prices, lots of predictions now that it could be a crash in the housing market. Yesterday, mortgage brokers moving to block people taking out big mortgages, and there is a real possibility, is there not, that people may not be able to pay their mortgages?
I totally agree with that. It's coming to the stage where mortgages are probably going to match rent prices. Rent prices over the last couple of years have historically been a lot higher than mortgages. I think to use the word crash, though, kind of brings around sort of 2008 comparisons, and I don't think banks are...
I was talking about housing market, not banks, but I see what you're saying.
Yeah, but I guess the reason that we crashed in 2008 is because of the bank side of stuff, and banks are well capitalised these days. I think there could be a housing market malaise, so we do have prices, dampened for a while, until interest rates are cut again, of course. But I really think that crash and kind of the comparisons that some have been making with 2008 might be a bit off.
What I don't understand is the point Isabel was making about consequences, that they knew there would be consequences to these policies. The Bank of England meeting yesterday, they say one thing which affects the interest rates, and then they say another thing, which is, well, let's all just wait until November. That is forever away. And they know there's going to be consequences to that. What's that all about?
Well, I think, this mini-budget came at totally the wrong time. If we compare to the EU, for example, who in March are going to have to reintroduce their fiscal rules, that might have been a bit of a better time because the yield on bonds might have had some more parity, or there might have been a different context. But to reintroduce it right now when the Bank of England to introduce this new mini-budget when the Bank of England are looking to hike and prevent inflation, it's insanity to me.
So the gilt yields, I mean, traditionally, if you look at the UK, you can be pretty certain that gilt yields will be pretty steady. Talk about what is happening with those, because they're terrifyingly high. And some experts are reading in the FT this morning saying what they're seeing at the moment, the spiral that we usually see in emerging markets crises, where policymakers struggle to reassert credibility. We look like an emerging market,
Yeah, it is troubling when you see the gilt yields. I was just looking at it before I came on this morning, and it's up at I think for the 10-year, it's up at 4.25%, which is a massive break on the longer term trend. And of course, that's going to translate onto mortgage costs and debt servicing costs for the UK. That doesn't mean, though, that we can't have an equally as volatile move to the other side. You know, if, for example, interest rates had to be cut, if the Bank of England decided to do QE, which I think, you know, we've had, don't get me started on that. We've had, you know, the last 3 days have been very, very, you know, news heavy on the pound and this kind of thing. But I think what we have to do really is to extend our timelines in terms of how we look at this, rather than just look at it, okay, all of this has happened over the last 2 days. Because as someone that looks at markets heavily, I would rarely take, you know, 1 day's worth of data into account to form a longer term opinion. It just can't work like that. So I think if we were to revisit this conversation in a month or two, it might look very different. And if it
might look better?
Probably. Yeah. I would say so, because
so that, you know, you've got the Labour Party conference going on at the moment, and the sort of catchphrase there they have is out of control. Things are out of control. You'd beg to differ?
Too early to say. I don't like the policy right now. I think, you know, it's kind of reflected as well in Labour's lead over the Conservatives. I think that Westminster voting intentions got Labour at a 17-point lead at the moment. I think, you know, but then again, I don't know any of Labour's economic policies off the back of it. There's no PR.
We're going to find out. We might find out today.